Imagine living in a world where no words, no insults, and no judgments could truly wound you, where the opinions of others, whether sharp like a blade or heavy like a stone, simply pass through you as if you were made of light. This is not a fantasy. It is a truth that the greatest minds in psychology and philosophy have pointed to. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, spent his life exploring the depths of the human soul, uncovering why we feel pain from others' words and how we can rise above it. Byung-Chul Han, one of today's most influential philosophers, continues this journey by revealing how modern society traps us in cycles of constant offense, endless comparison, and fragile egos. Together, their wisdom shows us a path, a way to live free from being easily offended, a way to master ourselves instead of being mastered by others. In today's video, once you learn this truth, you'll never be offended again. Carl Jung and Byung-Chul Han. We will explore 7 powerful lessons drawn from these two profound thinkers. Each lesson will bring you closer to an inner strength that no insult can touch, no opinion can weaken, and no criticism can destroy. Let's begin with the first 2 insights. Part 1. Carl Jung believed that the reason we are so easily offended lies within what he called the shadow. The shadow is the hidden part of ourselves, the aspects of our personality we deny, repress, or pretend do not exist. When someone insults us or criticizes us, it often stings not because their words are objectively powerful, but because they touch on something hidden inside us, something we have not yet accepted. Imagine, for example, that someone calls you selfish. If deep inside you believe yourself to be generous, and you have accepted the fact that sometimes you can also act selfishly, as every human being does, the insult has no power. But if you deny your selfish tendencies, if you pretend that you are pure selflessness, the accusation cuts deep. It awakens a part of yourself you would rather not face. Jung taught that to be truly free from offense, we must confront our shadow. We must bring light to the hidden corners of our psyche and accept that we are not perfect. Offense only takes root where denial exists. The insult is not the real problem. The real problem is our refusal to embrace the totality of who we are. So the first truth is this: no one can truly offend you once you embrace your own shadow. The moment you say, "Yes, I have flaws, and I accept them," you disarm the world. The insult loses its sting because you are no longer at war with yourself. Part 2. The Society of Offense. Byung-Chul Han. Fast forward to our modern world. Byung-Chul Han, observing the 21st century, argues that we now live in a culture where offense is not only common, but encouraged. He describes our time as a society of exposure, where every opinion, every mistake, and every thought can be amplified and judged in the digital arena. Social media thrives on outrage. Entire platforms are designed to magnify offense, rewarding those who express anger, criticism, or victimhood with attention and validation. Han points out that this constant climate of offense is not just accidental. It's a symptom of what he calls the burnout society. In a world obsessed with productivity, competition, and visibility, people become fragile. They lose resilience because their worth is tied to how they are seen by others. The smallest criticism feels unbearable because it threatens the carefully curated image they present online and offline. According to Han, offense has become a kind of social currency. People measure their identity by how offended they are, believing that their outrage gives them importance. But in reality, this only makes them more dependent on external forces. They become prisoners of opinion, forever reacting instead of living freely. So the second truth is this: modern society trains you to be offended, but you have the power to step outside this trap. The moment you realize that offense is not strength but weakness, not empowerment but dependence, you can break free. Like Jung's shadow work, Han invites us to stop outsourcing our worth to others. If we stop measuring ourselves through external judgment, we can no longer be enslaved by the culture of outrage. Part 3. Detachment from the ego. Carl Jung. If offense comes from the shadow, it also feeds on the ego. Jung argued that the ego is the fragile mask we wear to present ourselves to the world. It is necessary. We all need an identity, a sense of I to navigate daily life. But the ego is not our true essence. It is a surface role, a costume that can easily be wounded. When someone insults us, what is really hurt? Not the deeper self that Jung spoke of, the timeless center of our being that connects us to the collective, unconscious, but the ego. The ego is like a mirror that cracks at the slightest touch. If someone calls you a failure, the ego feels shattered, but the self, that deeper essence within you, is untouched. The self knows that human beings are not defined by single moments, by opinions, or even by social success. Jung's advice was to reduce identification with the ego. The more you cling to your ego image, the smart one, the kind one, the successful one, the more you will be offended when that image is threatened. But if you shift your identity from the fragile ego to the deeper self, criticism cannot truly harm you. The self is whole, expansive, and beyond insult. This leads us to the third truth. When you stop identifying with the fragile ego and instead root yourself in the deeper, self-offense becomes powerless. The ego can be bruised, but your true essence is invulnerable. Part 4. The Transparency Trap. Byung-Chul Han. While Jung reveals the inner battle, Byung-Chul Han exposes the outer one. He warns of what he calls the transparency trap. In today's culture, everything must be exposed, shared, and made visible. From personal opinions to private lives, people feel pressured to put themselves on display. But with exposure comes vulnerability, and with vulnerability comes offense. Han argues that transparency, while praised as openness, often turns into surveillance. Everyone becomes both judge and judged. In such an environment, people grow hypersensitive because they feel they are constantly being watched. Offense then becomes not just personal but public. A single comment can feel like an attack on your entire identity, amplified by the audience of the digital stage. The transparency trap creates a cycle. The more you show, the more you must defend. The more you defend, the more fragile you become. It is a culture that rewards thin skin, not resilience. People perform outrage to prove they matter, but in reality, this makes them prisoners of opinion. The fourth truth is, therefore, you are not obligated to expose your whole self to the world. Privacy is strength. Keeping parts of your life away from the arena of judgment gives you resilience. By resisting the pressure of transparency, you free yourself from the constant cycle of offense. Part 5. The Alchemy of Transformation. Carl Jung and Byung-Chul Han. Here we arrive at a powerful synthesis. Both Jung and Han teach us that offense is not merely something to avoid, but something to transform. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of integrating the shadow, transcending the ego and becoming whole. Han, in his critique of modern society, calls for a return to contemplation, slowness, and genuine inner life rather than shallow reaction. When someone offends you, you face a choice: react impulsively, feeding the culture of outrage, or transform the energy into growth. This is what Jung meant when he said that everything rejected in the shadow holds the potential for transformation. Every insult is an invitation to self-knowledge. Every criticism is a mirror that can help you grow if you look at it honestly. Han reminds us that true strength comes from stepping outside the noise, resisting the demand to constantly react. If you slow down, reflect, and ask yourself, why did this offend me? You begin the alchemy of turning pain into wisdom. Thus, the fifth truth is, offense can become your teacher. If you choose transformation over reaction, instead of being trapped in outrage, you can use every insult as fuel for growth, every criticism as a mirror for self-discovery, and every offense as a step toward inner freedom. Part 6. Freedom Through Inner Silence by Byung-Chul Han. One of Byung-Chul Han's most striking insights is that modern people have lost the art of silence. In a society overflowing with noise, offense spreads like wildfire. Every tweet, every comment, every notification becomes a spark that sets the fragile ego aflame. Han observes that this endless noise makes us slaves to reaction. We no longer pause, no longer reflect. We respond instantly, angrily, defensively. But silence, he argues, is the beginning of freedom. Silence is not weakness but power. When you choose not to respond to every provocation, you begin to master yourself. Silence interrupts the chain of offense because it denies the world the immediate reaction it craves. The culture of outrage depends on speed. Outrage needs fast clicks, instant replies, and emotional explosions. When you step into silence, you remove yourself from this trap. This is not just an external silence, but an inner one. Han calls for a return to contemplation, the ability to sit with yourself, to think deeply, to allow insults to pass without attaching meaning to them. In silence, offense evaporates because it cannot find a place to root itself. The sixth truth is this: silence is strength. By practicing inner stillness, you rise above the noise of offense and discover freedom that cannot be taken away. Part 7. The Wholeness of the Self. Carl Jung. Carl Jung's ultimate vision was wholeness. He believed that life's purpose is not perfection, but integration. To live without being easily offended, one must become whole, accepting the light and the dark, the flaws and the strengths, the ego and the shadow. Jung often said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Offense thrives on division, between who we think we are and who we really are, between the image we show the world and the parts we hide. But when you become whole, offense has nowhere to land. If someone calls you arrogant, and you have accepted that yes, at times you are arrogant but also humble, the words simply pass through you. They cannot wound what is whole. Jung's individuation process teaches us that freedom comes when nothing inside you remains in denial. Offense feeds on denial. Wholeness dissolves it. To be whole is to be untouchable, not because you are hard, but because you are complete. So the seventh and final truth is this: wholeness makes you invulnerable. When you embrace every part of yourself, you rise beyond the reach of offense. Ending. The path beyond offense. Now we return to the beginning. Imagine living in a world where nothing could offend you. A world where words pass like wind, where judgments bounce off you like rain on stone. This is not a distant dream. It is the reality that Carl Jung and Byung-Chul Han point toward. Jung teaches us to face the shadow, to go beyond the fragile ego, to embrace wholeness. Han warns us of the culture of offense, the transparency trap, and the prison of noise. Together they show us a path of silence, reflection, and self-acceptance. If you learn these truths, you will never again be enslaved by the opinions of others. You will never again feel the sting of shallow insults. Instead, you will stand rooted in yourself, whole and free. Offense will lose its power because you will have discovered something greater, the power of inner freedom. So the invitation is clear. Stop reacting. Start reflecting. Accept your shadow. Detach from your ego. Resist the culture of outrage. Practice silence. And above all, seek wholeness. Do this and offense will no longer touch you. This is the timeless wisdom of Carl Jung joined with the urgent insights of Byung-Chul Han. Together, they give us not just ideas but a way of life. A life where peace replaces anger, resilience replaces fragility, and freedom replaces offense.